Thank you for being here. My name is Jeff Munzinger. I'm the moderator tonight. I'll play a minor role in this event. I wanted to introduce real quickly Debbie Patterson and the Greene County Democrats. Welcome you here, but we are going to have another event or two coming up. I wanted Debbie to share that information.
On the fourth Wednesday of each month, we are planning to have town halls that are of interest to the community. So on March 27th will be our second town hall, and the school board candidates will be here. We've got 2 of them confirmed, waiting on the 3rd one, so hopefully that'll be an interesting night too, that we can learn more about them and ask questions. Tonight, what we're going to do to move this along is if you have a question that you would like asked panel, raise your hand and I'll give you, and I can do it now if you like, a note card and a pen. And this is just to keep it flowing and keep it going, because I've been to several meetings lately and it just takes too long. And so if you don't mind, bear with us on that. If you've got 3 or 4 questions, raise your hand or hand them in, and then we'll pick them up, and Jeff will just pull them out and read them when they get done with their presentation. Right here, 6:30. So unless, you know, we decide to change it, but we're trying to keep it set.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd like to introduce everyone. Okay, is that a little better? Okay, as you're receiving your cards that you can use to write questions, I want to introduce you to Carol Embree, who is Deputy Superintendent of Springfield Public Schools for Operations. So, Carol, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you for your time this evening. I would also like to introduce, to my right is Mrs. Jill Patterson. She volunteers as a school board member and is currently serving as our president of the Springfield School District. So the very first thing I'm going to do is play a video for you, and hopefully you each have one of the brochures that were distributed. And understand that in the brochure, that information summarizes much of what you will see also in the video, and then I'll be covering some of that in the presentation to follow. Get this video started.
Each day, 25,000 students walk through the doors of Springfield Public Schools' 53 buildings. As parents and community members, we want these schools to be welcoming places where students are inspired to learn, staff are excited to work, and that reflect the value we place on education in this community.
As members of the Community Task Force on Facilities, we worked alongside other parents, students, and community members for 5 months to evaluate the current condition of all SPS schools.
The Community Task Force prioritized the improvements needed and suggested that the school board move forward with requesting a bond proposal to fund 39 critical projects.
Proposition S requests an 18-cent increase to the debt service levy to fund projects including renovation or reconstruction of 6 schools, which would include adding storm shelters, remodeling entrances to better enhance security at 31 schools, plus adding classroom space to expand early childhood education services in Northwest and Southwest Springfield.
We appreciate the efforts of the citizens who volunteered their time to create a plan that will benefit our students and our community.
Due to the age and design of the schools, their main entrances are not suited to best monitor who is entering the building. Sunshine is one of those schools. Visitors enter at the back of the school and walk all the way through the building, passing classrooms and the cafeteria before they check in at the office.
New entrances with secure double entry points will require all visitors to check in with an SPS staff member before gaining access to the school building. Staff members will also be able to control visitor access using a system of electronic locking doors, intercoms, and cameras.
We want our schools to be welcoming places for visitors. We also want to make sure our staff know who is entering the building and the purpose for the visit.
Access to early childhood education gives preschoolers a head start so they can be ready to learn when they enter kindergarten. Building a new center in Southwest Springfield will expand those services to about 250 preschoolers. Plus, as part of the Williams Elementary School renovation, classroom space would be added to serve an additional 100 preschoolers in Northwest Springfield.
Delaware serves all students, including those with physical and developmental disabilities. The new building will be designed with the needs of every learner in mind, helping our school to continue serving as an all-inclusive hub.
Our school currently uses the cafeteria to serve meals and hold physical education classes. With the newly constructed facility, we will have a dedicated cafeteria and a separate storm shelter gymnasium, which will make serving meals and scheduling classes more efficient, with the added benefit of keeping students and staff safe during inclement weather.
One disadvantage of Sunshine's current design is the location of the office in relation to the primary entrance, which creates a security concern. The renovation will include a new secure entrance, requiring visitors to go through the office before entering the school. Improvements will also address accessibility challenges to ensure the school accommodates students and visitors of all abilities.
The renovation will also include construction of a dedicated gymnasium, allowing more space for PE classes and other activities and making meal service more efficient and enjoyable for students.
Boyd's current design is a barrier that prevents the building from being accessible to all. A new school building would meet the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act and provide easy access to all students, parents, and community members.
Boyd is a 3-story building and all of its bathrooms are located in the basement. Second graders on the top floor must climb down and up 3 flights of stairs to use those facilities during the school day. Building a new and accessible school, students would have easier access to the restrooms.
In its current location, Jarrett Middle School is being enveloped by the MSU campus and nearby student housing. By building a new Jarrett on the Portland Elementary current site, just 1.5 miles away, we will be better able to serve our students in their own neighborhood. A new Jarrett will serve up to 725 students in grades 6 through 8, expanding the number of students attending the new school. Plus, the new building will address the school's accessibility and safety challenges, leading to a safer school for all students.
Renovating Hillcrest High School will address the security and accessibility concerns and create a quality learning environment that meets the needs of learners on Hillcrest's campus.
These school improvements would cost less than 10 cents a day in additional property taxes for a home with a market value of $100,000. Property taxes are the primary funding source public schools can use to pay for major capital improvements. This proposal requests an 18-cent increase to the debt service levy, which would be phased in over 2 years, 9 cents in 2019 and an additional 9 cents in 2020. Compared with other school districts in the area, the SPS debt service levy is currently one of the lowest.
As an SPS student, I was a part of the community task force that studied the condition of our schools. These proposed improvements will make our schools safer and stronger for students like us.
Remember to vote Tuesday, April 2nd on Proposition S.
Okay, I'll transition now to the presentation. You noticed in that video that a number of people were identified as being community task force members, and I want you to understand that that group was appointed by the Board of Education, and they met beginning in June all the way until October when they provided their comprehensive report to the Board of Education. So those meetings took place multiple hours, a couple of times each month, and it was representative of the diverse population of our school district. So representation included all 5 feeder patterns of our 5 high schools. We had students and teachers and community leaders and grandparents and people who have no children in the school district but were very interested in serving as part of this group. And they provided a recommendation that was centered around this driving question indicated here. What facility improvement projects need to be completed to ensure all SPS students have access to safe and quality learning environments. They opened each meeting with that question, and then they proceeded through the work of learning about the facilities and the information in general to support that, and then also making determinations for the recommendation. You note that there's a website address listed at the bottom of that screen. All of the information that was provided to our community task force members is included on that website, and access is available to the public. So, the report, again, the final report was provided to the board in October, and important to note, it did include these 39 high priority projects that have been identified as part of this $168 million bond issue that would carry with it an 18-cent levy increase to be phased in over 2 years. The themes identified through the report include safety and accessibility improvements, expanding preschool opportunities, and updating learning environments. And the board, most importantly, they did determine to adopt and approve the comprehensive report of the Community Task Force in its entirety without any changes. This would be placed on the April ballot, April 2nd ballot. So part of the feedback that the board attained following the April 2017 bond issue was then provided, actually the full information was provided to the Community Task Force. And that was part of the analysis in determining what would be the right move forward for the projects to be identified. So these next bullet points identify some of those responses to the elements identified through third-party surveys. Surveys were conducted of taxpayers, or voters rather, and also there were focus groups that were conducted to identify what challenges did the April 2017 bond issue have to make it across the finish line. So overall, this bond issue relative to that last one is smaller by 10%, more than 10%, and the levy ask to support it is 25% less than the April 2017 bond issue. We have great specificity within this bond issue relative to the last ask. Again, 39 high priority projects were identified by the Community Task Force members, and there's very defined impact with regard to what would occur in the schools. Only one school would close in this proposal, and that's Portland Elementary, and I'll cover that in a little more depth. And it would be replaced with the new Jarrett Middle School in that same attendance area. It also obviously carried with it increased community engagement and ownership of this volunteer task force. So, important to note, these schools would receive major renovation or new construction. They have an average age of 86 years. So we do have a number of aging buildings, and they carry with it a great deal of renovation requirements. The combined elementary and middle school concept that was proposed in the last bond issue is no longer included. So where that would have kept the schools individually small and joined them in the center where the kitchen, the stove, the dishwashers, that type of thing would reside, and have two separate buildings, it would still form a larger campus on the property. So no longer part of the bond issue. Also, Bowerman, Delaware, and York will continue as traditional K-5 elementary schools in this proposal. And 3 of the 6 existing campuses that would be significantly impacted will be renovated rather than have new construction. That was part of that feedback from our survey process of our voters. So, 3 big questions to answer. Why are bonds necessary? How does the SPS levy compare? And what is the taxpayer impact? So we will unpack that. Very important, the state of Missouri does not provide funding to directly support building new buildings or renovating existing buildings, even to the extent of replacing roofs or HVAC systems. None of that is directly funded by the state of Missouri. There are states that have specific funding mechanisms that provide for that need. But in Missouri, it's up to the local patrons, which is awesome when it comes to local control, but that's why we need a bond issue to affect the change needed on these buildings. And I should also share that in Springfield Public Schools, we have a lot of buildings because we agree and approach that small neighborhood school concept. And so that means we need more buildings to handle our 25,000 students. We are the largest school district in the state of Missouri. Many people don't realize that. And we also have over 4 million square feet of buildings that we are attending to every year. The primary avenue that is allowed then for addressing facility needs is a debt service levy. And the levy in the debt service account is set each year to the level required to generate enough revenue to make the principal and interest payment. So no different than a mortgage, a home mortgage that you might have, where you make your payment monthly for principal and interest. This levy provides the revenue that we use then to make that principal and interest payment. The bonds are sold to investors, so that money is then provided to us immediately so that we can invest in the buildings. And then the loan is amortized out over a 20-year period. So again, homes are often 15 years or 30 years, and for our school loans, they would typically be 20 years. This slide shows you a comparison of levies for not only our region, but also throughout the state. And I want you to understand part of why we identified the districts we listed here. Oh, well, that did not work out. Okay. So on the upper section, that grid above, you can see that the Springfield School District levy is 55 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. And we have listed Nixa, Willard, Republic, Logan, Rogersville, and Ozark as our surrounding regional comparatives. You can see that Nixa carries nearly $1.07 per $100 of assessed valuation, which is more than double Springfield, and the others are somewhere in between. With regard to our regional comparatives, what we did is we said, okay, Springfield is the largest school district. What other large school districts are there in the state of Missouri? But not just large districts. Who else compares to us from an economic perspective? So we identified the largest school districts in the state that also are similar in demographic for free and reduced lunch populations. So people who qualify for free and reduced lunch assistance. And that included then North Kansas City, Independence, Hazelwood, and Columbia. And again, you can see North Kansas City is $1.29 for $100 of assessed valuation. Springfield is 55 cents. The closest to us is Columbia at 97.19 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. This shows you the impact to an individual taxpayer. And the value that we provided is $100,000. If you could sell your home today for $100,000, you would know that this levy increase would cost, once fully phased in, $34.20 per year, or $2.85 per month. So again, that's for someone who owns a personal residence that would be valued today at $100,000. We also are providing information regarding commercial real estate because they carry different levels of assessed value. And for commercial real estate, we have shown the example of a $500,000 piece of property. That would carry with it an additional tax increase of $288 per year, or $24 per month. And again, that's after the levy would be fully phased in, because it's an 18-cent levy, but the ballot will read, and I'll show you that next. This is the actual ballot language that will appear April 2nd for anyone who lives in Greene County and is part of the Springfield Public Schools boundary area. Shall the district issue $168 million for the purpose of improving, repairing, renovating, and acquiring buildings, including security improvements, constructing new buildings and purchasing land, and furnishing and equipping school buildings. We are also required to indicate what the levy change would be, and because we're phasing it in, it's a little more complex, but what is missing here is that we're starting at 55 cents. So 55 cents plus 9 cents would raise it to 64 cents in 2019, and with an additional 9 cents in 2020 would raise it to the 73 cents. That would be the new levy.
It looks like the increase is
right. Yeah, and we've had a little bit of feedback. Unfortunately, the bond council wrote this, and so that's the ballot language itself. So we're working hard to inform people about that. Okay, so the interest rate, what we're estimating at this time is approximately 4%. It would be fixed. Okay, so this is a project summary list, and again, you have great specificity within your handout that lists out in a grid the work to be conducted. But this summarizes for you that renovations would occur at Sunshine, Williams, and Hillcrest. So Sunshine and Williams Elementary and then Hillcrest High School. We would address 31 schools for secure entrances, and we would expand preschool, and I'm excited to share with you about that. In the Southwest region, there would be an early childhood hub, and then in the Northwest region, there would be a mini hub added to Williams Elementary. Additionally, there would be new construction at Boyd and Delaware Elementaries and Jarrett Middle School. So, with regard to secure entrances, the Community Task Force was provided throughout those months some information provided by architects who were employed to provide design work so that they could develop what it would cost for not only renovation versus new construction of these projects, but also some of that costing on secure entrances. And the Community Task Force recognized that with all of the needs in the district, with this particular bond issue, there's no way that all the projects that need to be addressed throughout the district would be addressed. And they asked the Board of Education to consider adding some additional funds so that all the schools throughout the district would have secure entrances with the completion of this work. So once these 31 school sites are addressed, all of our sites with students would have secure entrances where they are appropriately buzzed in through the front office. And this is a list of those sites. I'll highlight for you a couple of them. So Jarrett Middle School is listed here because Jarrett would not only continue during the construction phase, students would still be in the existing Jarrett building. Beyond that, Jarrett would likely be used as a satellite facility for students from Pipkin to attend at Jarrett, while Pipkin would be renovated in the future, and while students would attend there while Reed is renovated in the future. But those would be decisions down the road. So we would go ahead and address the secure entrance there. And likewise, if you don't know, when Fremont Elementary was being renovated and added on to with that storm shelter gymnasium, we had those students and staff members learn in the old Sherwood building that's on Scenic. So the new Sherwood facility was constructed, and the old Sherwood building is sitting there ready for use as a satellite center. And so that would be the plan for the elementary students to work through that building. Okay, so preschool expansion. The reason I'm so excited about this is my 27th year in Missouri public education business. And in all my years, the state of Missouri has never supported preschool from an operational perspective. So it's always been K-12. And for the very first time this year, this past July 1, our legislators were able to effect the change needed to fund operational costs for preschool for children who are with need. So for families who qualify for free or reduced lunch, so the people with most of the needs, they can send their children to preschool for education at no cost. I told you before that the state of Missouri does not provide for facilities, though, so we need a place for these kids to be and teachers to be teaching them. So this hub that would be constructed on the Carver Middle School site, because there is a pocket of land right there that we already own, would be built. And again, I need to highlight that any of the images included here, this simply represents conceptual design that the architects performed so that they could cost out the pricing of new construction versus renovation for all of the sites. And so we would be capitalizing on that new state funding. So we need to provide the facilities, but the teacher costs, the paraprofessional costs, the supplies in the classroom, all of that is funded through new revenue from the state of Missouri. So at Delaware Elementary, and again, I'll just highlight some of the important things that you might not be able to easily read there. But this would be a new building, so we would transfer students from Delaware temporarily over to the old Sherwood building while we reconstruct a new facility on the Delaware land. And it would carry with it ultimately a boundary shift. Some of the kids from Sunshine would attend Delaware once that building is complete. And we would anticipate that the new school, it would be open for 2021 school year. So August of 20 is when that building would open. It would serve up to 350 K-5 students. And again, all of these sites where there would be new construction or renovation would include a storm shelter, gymnasium, that's not just available for the staff and the students during the day, but it's available for the entire community in the event there's inclement weather and people need to seek safety. So it's a community service that would be provided. So for Sunshine Elementary, whoops, went too far. This includes renovation work and addition to the building. And in this situation, the students and staff would continue to teach and learn while they are on the site while the construction is taking place. And this would include the addition to allow for Portland attendance area students to move over to the Sunshine Building. And again, we would be shifting then some Sunshine students over to Delaware, so it's a bit of a domino process. So again, the Storm Shelter Gymnasium, and we would anticipate this opening in the 2021 school year. Boyd Elementary, this property currently is positioned on a very tiny piece of land. It's 1.49 acres. And just for your context, in most school districts, and this would not be urban, but more suburban, when they consider building on acreage for an elementary site, they would even consider a piece of property that was not at least 12 acres. So we do have to handle buildings differently in an urban environment, so that's why we have to have multiple stories. But as was indicated in the video, not only is Boyd not, there's no elevator in the building, much like most of our buildings, they have multiple stories, so we're not providing accessibility to people who need that. And, but Boyd, what's not in the video, is when we have heavy rains, it floods often, and we have to bring in porta pots to accommodate the staff and the students at that site. So that's one of the challenges. It's not always highlighted. We're always doing the best we can for our kids, but some things are out of our hands. So again, this would be ready to open the 21-22 school year. And Boyd would include some pre-K classrooms within it as well to accommodate those needs. And our Board of Education is committed that this would be built on property within the Midtown area, so very close to where Boyd exists currently.
Now, where would they go to school during?
So Boyd would also, those kids would actually be able to stay in their current site while the new building would be built on different land in the Midtown area. Okay? So for Williams Elementary, we are showing that little box up in the upper right-hand corner, that's representing the mini hub. So there would be some expansion of Williams, renovation, and then also a mini hub for pre-K classrooms to be added onto that to provide that space. And this indicates we would anticipate opening the 2021-22 school year. For Jarrett Middle School, this again is the building that would have a new building built on the Portland Elementary site. So in this situation, the Jarrett students would continue to be educated in their current facility until they were able to move to their new building. This would allow for expanded space for extracurricular programming that they don't have space around them right now, and would be projected to open the 22-23 school year. For Hillcrest High School, this is a project. We don't have a satellite facility to temporarily relocate our high school students. And so this would need to take place with students and staff learning on site. And as you can see, with the extensive amount of work that needs to occur, we have the current project highlighted in orange and a future needs identified in the blue area. So for Hillcrest, and you saw some of the information within the video, it would provide for safety and accessibility, and again, it would address that secure entrance and the connection of buildings as well. Okay, so election information. People who are not registered to vote need to know that in order to vote at this election, you need to register by March 6th. And the election day again is April 2nd. And Greene County can help people understand where they need to vote and also provide clarity in terms of if people don't know if they're part of this voting population. And a simple majority is not enough. The April 2017 bond issue had more than a simple majority, okay? But For public education, we are required to attain a 4/7 yes vote, which is 57.14%. And lastly, the date to vote is April 2nd. So, okay.
Thank you, Carol. I wonder, do you and Jill want to have a seat up here? Okay, all right. Well, let's do that. Let's do that. I'll pass the mic to you for the answers. How about that? So we want to try to restrict the questions to the bond issue. We don't want to talk about curriculum or personnel or busing or any number of other questions that people often have about school districts. So some of these questions may have been answered, and we're going to...
That's okay.
I might have missed it too. Okay.
It's okay if you memorize it.
Question one, is this a permanent increase?
In terms, I assume that means in terms of the levy, and each year the levy is set at the amount required to make the principal and interest payments. So the short answer to that is no. Having said that, what I can tell you right now, which is really more information than what you want, the base calculation actually allows the district to set the levy higher than it currently is, and we do a rollback because we always roll back to the amount required to make the principal and interest payments. So the short answer is no, and it's always adjusted every year. And I should say that there's a state auditor calculation form, so we're required to work through the state auditors at the tax levies for the operating levy and the debt service levy. And so we do the calculations using their forms and then submit it to the state auditor's office for validation that all has been done correctly.
A question about the slide showing all the different projects. How many years will it take to complete the projects listed?
I think I was supposed to read that. I think it was on one slide, and I didn't say it out loud. But I believe we are anticipating by the end of 2023 that all projects identified in this bond issue will be complete.
Here's one that I could have asked, because I don't know the answer. Does the bond require revenue from both property taxes as well as personal property taxes?
It does. And so when taxes are set, well, first, when you receive a tax bill, there is an assessed value or a percentage that's applied to all of your property. So for instance, for a homeowner, your residence is set at 19% of your market value to calculate the assessed value. Your personal property is 33 1/3%. If you have commercial property, it's 32%. And if you have agricultural property, it's 12%. All that to say, all taxes are assessed on all of those types of properties. And so it would apply to that. We could provide an example of $10,000, what that could equate to. It'd be $3 and, well, no, I need to do the math. But if it was a $10,000 assessed value, it would be $3.40. But we could provide a calculation on personal properties.
And that includes cars?
Yes, that would be cars and boats and anything that people would own.
So $34 is somewhat that's not total.
So the 3420 was based solely on if you own a home that you could sell today for $100,000. Well, it would be. Again, it depends on the value of your property, and the $100,000 was just a simple rounded number, so that if you have a $200,000 home, you could double that, or
several cars.
right.
Don't visitors to schools have to go through a locked door to see someone now before entering a school?
Okay. So this is correct. We do everything we can to keep our students safe, given the structures of the buildings that we have. You saw the example of Sunshine Elementary, where people get buzzed in. So there's a camera that the secretary in the office would view and see, and they buzz a buzzer system, and then they ask you who you are and what your business is, and you share that information. Part of the challenge with that is someone else could get in the door at the same time potentially, or sometimes people are just being polite and they let somebody else in. with them, and that may not always be the best situation for us. So in this situation with the secure entrances, not only are they buzzed in appropriately, but they route through a corridor or an office where they would be additionally screened for their purpose for the visit and ensure that they have a valid reason to be there. And in our community, we have a number of people with a lot of needs, and so there are certain schools within our community that have a number of people who are just desperate for help and trying to get in the buildings. So that's an encounter that's unfortunate, but it's real.
If you're going to let somebody in through one, you're going to be gracious to let somebody in through it to a second door.
So to further describe it, it's a two-layer process. So they get buzzed into the office area, but then they're not allowed to go on into the building until they're buzzed in there, and there's more control in that environment.
We have several questions about Portland and Sunshine. Here's one I have heard about several. I have been to several of the forums, but I have not heard anyone speak to the closing of Portland and combining it with Sunshine. Second question, with the proposal to close Portland, let's deal with that one.
So the base, what's the base question of that one? Had not heard, yeah, okay, yeah. So what I can share is that the original conversation with the Board of Education, and those are all public meetings and the documentation is posted publicly, I believe occurred February of 2018 when the consideration for a variety of projects for the architects to perform work on, to do design work occurred. And then certainly at subsequent meetings, including during the community task force meetings and other conversations at the board table, that was part of the discussion. Did I answer that fully enough? No. Yeah. So, but I've not heard anyone speak to closing. So certainly land is something that is a precious commodity in our community. You know, we have this robust community that has a lot of commercial and residential all in a tight area. And so the Portland site is a valid site where the Jarrett building could be built. It will serve the same families of those kids that are attending Portland, and provided that opportunity for us to figure out a way to address building and then providing for students for the long term.
This is one that probably was addressed, but with the proposal to close Portland Elementary, can you explain why that site is best suited for the proposed new Jarrett Middle School?
I feel like I kind of answered. Do you feel that way? Okay. Yes, that having land available to us in the appropriate attendance area is key, and that provided that opportunity.
One more here. With which schools will have boundary changes due to Portland closing in the new Jarrett, and how many students will be impacted?
And I might need to refer back to one of the presentation slides. We had indicated approximately 80 to 100 students would shift to Delaware, I believe. So let me just back up to that. That would be the easiest thing to do. I don't want to misspeak for anyone. I don't have it all memorized. Okay. So, and I know this print is a bit hard to read.
Is that 80 to 100?
So shift 80 to 100 students from Portland to Delaware. So yes, because the Portland building no longer exists, so approximately 80 to 100 students would shift there. And understand that we have a number of students attending these elementary buildings that aren't part of that neighborhood boundary because of transfers in. We have a lot of mobility and people choosing to go to different buildings, and we allow for that in Springfield Public Schools.
The Portland kids that are closed will not go to Sunshine necessarily.
So,
Is that right?
okay, so this would include, the Delaware school would include, oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the Sunshine slide, so I misspoke. So the Portland attendance area does go to Sunshine, and it would shift 80 to 100 students to New Delaware. So in order for this to work, Portland students would go to Sunshine, and some Sunshine students would go to Delaware. It's because of how they're laid out geographically.
Portland would not.
I apologize, yes, right. And again, all of that will need to be looked at, and our transportation department will run all of the numbers to see what the best fit is.
So they would just be skipping around from Sunshine over Roundtree to get into Delaware.
Depends on the geographical lay of
Does
the
that
attendance area.
Roundtree?
To my knowledge, there's no plan to affect Roundtree.
Thank you, Carol. I'm so impressed that, I mean, I know it's your job, but there's a lot of schools and a lot of information and a lot of details still. Question about Campbell on South Grant. It is to be an early childhood development center, but I don't see it listed on any of these slides.
That is correct. I will tell you that the Community Task Force, again, they prioritize more projects beyond this list of 39 high priority projects. And Campbell is one of those, but they made a recommendation that Campbell would receive, I believe it's $5 million in renovation work in the future. So Campbell will continue as an early childhood center, serving our pre-K students in the community.
There's a lot of growth on the south side. Is there a plan for a new high school on the south side to absorb this growth?
Based on our demographic information at this time, we do not anticipate any new high school buildings being needed in our community. We do have plenty of space within our existing 5 campuses to accommodate the needs, but that is always looked at. As a matter of fact, for the Community Task Force and for the Board of Education prior to this, we routinely receive demographic study information that informs us of the trajectory in terms of the enrollment in the district over at least a decade of time. So at this point in time, the answer to that would be no.
Someone is asking if you can tell us more about what will happen to the Boyd and Jarrett buildings.
I would be happy to comment about that, and then Mrs. Patterson may want to weigh in. I will tell you that since I've been in the community, we have exercised what we call a request for information process in terms of what to do with our surplus real estate. The Board of Education requested that we develop a robust process by which not only is the dollar value considered, but also the purpose of what will that facility be used for in the community and how can it benefit the community at large. And so anyone who's interested, once the Board of Education declares property surplus, then we run through this request for information process where they provide not only the intended use and what they're willing to pay for the building, but they also provide their financial wherewithal with regard to being able to carry it out to full measure. Okay.
That's rare, but
When and where are public tours at the school buildings?
I am happy to tell you that we actually had a public tour at Jarrett yesterday evening, and we have tours scheduled for March 6th and March 7th, and then there's another one at Delaware. So they're at 7 p.m., and I will get that information. I can pull that up on my phone and make sure that you have it. It would be on our website. Thank you. So you can access that. So not only would there be an opportunity to tour some of these facilities, but there will also be a presentation just like this one this evening.
Let me see here. Will new entrances for visitors require additional staff? And do you know how much that might cost?
We do not anticipate the need for additional staff to address this flow of people into the buildings.
A question about percentage of funds being spent on schools in different neighborhoods. The question says, what is the percentage of funds spent on north, middle, and south side schools? For example, is the north 33%, the mid area 33%, the south 33%?
I can tell you that that data set does not exist because we don't look at it in terms of dividing our school district community into those categories. The reality for us is, and it was referenced in one of the questions, that where the growth occurs, that's where new buildings are built. So when you look at the age of our buildings, you see that our newer buildings are on the south area or the east area. And, but what we do with regard to providing funding, we provide a per pupil allocation for operational costs. Our staffing is based on the enrollment expectations of each building. And then when it comes to addressing facility needs, we simply prioritize the most urgent and address what we can.
A question asking, are there plans for STEM schools? Or what are the plans for STEM schools?
There's no specific plan at this time. I don't know specifically what that might mean in terms of the question. What I can tell you is that with regard to the design of these buildings, I've shared a few times that these are conceptual designs only. And how this happens is we move forward with the architectural teams, and the principal, who will be the leader at that building, and their teacher leaders are brought to the table for multiple meetings to identify what is needed to provide for instruction in a building. And it is through that grassroots approach that the teachers and the leader of the building are able to ask for the specific instructional areas within the building. And that would be the approach for each of these projects.
A question about the audit referenced in the survey. Who did the audit referenced in the survey of needs? Are they a security firm or a financial auditing firm?
So an audit.
The question is that one of the minutes reference to audit and the security areas that we did a financial audit firm security needs.
So actually, we utilize the services of BKD for internal auditing, and they did conduct a security audit or review. With regard to the specific sites that have been identified, staff members on our facility and maintenance team, and also our school police department members, they reviewed all of the information and physically visited each of the sites to identify the needs in these areas. And then the architectural teams, knowing best practices from an industry perspective, are developing the plan for each of the sites. BKD is our primary internal audit services provider, and they did.
Sarah, wait until she finishes
answering. And they did utilize, they partnered with a consultant who works within security.
I disagree with you. They do audits on a variety of different aspects, not just financial.
They capable of setting up financial security.
I disagree with you. They do lots of things, not just financial.
I don't know if this.
I'm sorry? And they have for many years, yes.
Right. I think it's,
Okay. If Proposition S is to pass, how will the transition between schools go for students at renovation schools?
So in general, I have shared some of the sequencing that is necessary. I will tell you that I believe it was at the November board meeting I shared with the Board of Education the identified sequencing that would be necessary to affect all the change needed. And again, when you understand that in order for Jarrett to go to Portland, Portland needs to go to Sunshine, some go to Delaware, we have to start with Delaware. And then at the same time, some of those other school projects can be taking place. So I think that perhaps that answers that question, but certainly students and staff will be in situations where they're able to continue with teaching and learning and be protected from any construction work that might be taking place on the sites, and then certainly where we have students be repositioned to another satellite site, that makes it much easier and the construction work can advance more quickly.
This question is for Jill. Okay. Your lifeline, right? What will the school board focus on this next term?
Okay, let's see. Well, right now, our primary focus is on the facilities plan, but we deal with the regular business that comes up on a multitude of levels. I would say 80% of our life is around the facilities, but we're dealing with day-to-day operations as well and other issues that come up. Most of us are going to 3 to 4 of these meetings a week right now, and I went to another meeting today that had to do with working with another community group that's interested in a different aspect of education, so it depends on what comes up. I say yes to most things, but yes to visit them.
Thank you. The remaining questions that were submitted have to do with test scores, what we might think about the job performance of our superintendent, and cybersecurity issues. And those are things that we said we would not address here because we wanted to keep this dedicated to the bond issue.
I disagree with you, respect and disagree. I think those issues directly relate to the bond issue because how can we trust people that we don't trust to handle our money? And I think that how the school district has had a test scores, which is now ranked 8th on the bottom of the state.
622, and
42 schools worth of
temperatures
us, et
dropped
cetera.
to 29.
How do we trust school districts handling that kind of money that we can't handle the day-to-day?
Well,
I disagree with you, there's not a good.
I think one of my questions, another town hall in the future that we, and actually in March 27th, some of the school board candidates will be here, but we really need to wrap this up, and it was totally focused on the bond issue.
So that's related to the bond.
I resent that you focus to the questions that were, I mean, have several $100,000 in property. Jill just mentioned, I know what we're focusing on, we're focusing on facilities. But I want to know, I'm very concerned with kids' education. And when I see the lowest test scores in the state, I don't think 80% of our time should be spent on facilities, but you have answered my question.
I was talking about this week, you know that you have plenty of opportunities to engage with us about it.
Because that's what
For the rest of you, I want to say thank you very much for your attention, and we would so much appreciate your vote in favor of this bond initiative.
thank you so much.